Okay, this is going to be round 2 of an attempt to talk with our guest today, Dean Anthony. I don't know what's going on with the technologies, but for some reason I wasn't able to hear him very well when we first started chatting, and I'm going to see if I can't bring him on now that we have a new connection established. We shall see. The joys of technology, right? When you're doing things live. Anyway, Dean and I first met when we were doing a Fledermaus production together just prior to the pandemic. I want to say it was 2018 or 2019. And it was my first time with that piece, actually. I'd never sung anything in Fledermaus. I was supposed to do a Falca at some point, and then anyway, for whatever reason, Eisenstein was my first attempt, and it was with Dean. And I gotta say, everything I had heard about him, all good, was absolutely true. He had so much energy that he brought to the production, and it was such a wonderful camaraderie of director and cast. And he even created his own dialogue that we all used for the production, which was fantastic. And so yeah, it's kind of cool when you're in the for a while, and then you hear about all these different people, and you finally get to meet them in person and work with them, and it's awesome. So let's see. I am still waiting for Dean to join the live, and then as soon as Dean is here, I can bring him in. Sorry guys, hopefully this will work this time. Here we go. All right, Dean is there, so I'm going to invite him. Okay. We'll see how this works. Okay. Dean, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
All right. Thanks, man.
You hear me?
I can hear you. I can't hear you as well as I should be able to hear you, but I think that's something weird on my end.
Okay.
But I think what's most importantly is that on the video, everyone else can hear us at the same volume, which is great. And I'll just lean in a little bit, so you might get a little more of my face than you may want, but it'll be
so
all right.
Pretty. Happy Father's Day, by the way, brother.
So, sorry, we had to kind of cancel that first part of the video, but to briefly summarize, you were saying you started off at Brevard, where of course now you're the director of the, how do you pronounce it, Janiak or Yaniak? Is it a soft J?
Janiak.
Janiak.
Yeah. So Henry Janiak was the gentleman that ran Brevard for 30 plus years and started the opera program, or started opera here in general. And so the company was named after him. And yeah, it's a really cool place. I gotta say,
That's amazing.
It means the world to me. Every aspect of this job is the highlight of all my years.
Well, and I was saying a little bit in the other video too, kind of bringing you on, that you have had an amazing career over the last 4 decades as a singer, as a producer, as a director, and as an educator. And I think in season 3 of this Under the Hood thing, I'm trying to talk with people who have been in the industry quite a while and see how things have changed over the years. And so we were talking a little bit about, and I was asking, what was your first professional gig? And you were saying, I don't know, I can't remember. But it sounds like it had to have been, because you said you spent a number of years at Central City as an apprentice.
Yeah, I did. And it was a strange path, because even when I was in grad school, because of my exposure as a young apprentice type, I snuck off and went down and sang for Virginia Opera and told the university I was going to, sorry, I gotta go.
Oh, wow.
And they looked at me like, you can't do that. I went, well, actually I can, because I'm paying for it. So that was just my old tenacious Dean self. And so, I was running around doing stuff, and I had met so many great directors at Central City or whatever, and they were saying, hey, what are you doing? Because I was performing so much, and I was cheap. And I was hungry.
What were maybe like the 5 roles that you did the most back in those days?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I was really fortunate to be in the revisiting of several shows. And as you know, what happens in this industry is somebody will do a Midsummer Night Dream, and then boom, 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 you see it the next 5 years. And so I did a lot of Midsummers, which is strange because I did Puck.
Oh, okay.
And so I didn't really sing very much. I got to do all my other stuff, but that's
Right.
where I love being. But I was there for a lot of the revisiting of Susanna. So Little Bat was really one of my best friends ever.
Yeah.
You know, and also even Mice and Men, I got to do Curly a lot. You know, but I really did a lot of Turandot. I did a ton of monocytoses.
Sounds like there's some unpacking to do in that.
Well, there is actually. I mean, I think I've done the math, and I think I've done almost 30 productions of Magic Flute in my career.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
so it's just like, you know, I mean, it's a great piece, but you know, you do the same part over and over and over again. It gets a little dry. But I did a lot of Pongs and Turandot, a ton of Bardolfos and Falstaff. I did a lot of Sanchos and Man La Mancha, Niegush and Merry Widow, a lot of Alfreds. But then I would do Dottie Danner's production where I do Alfred in Act 1. Then I do Yvonne in Act 2 because we did this whole Thundering Lightning Polka section where I, you know, with the Russian dancers, I was one of them, and we would seriously do flips and tumbles and cartwheels and
Well, that was your calling card, right? The tumbling tenor.
That was the tumbling tenor. Oh my God. Jesus. Sorry. You know, and it makes me laugh now because I can barely walk across the street because my body hurts so bad. But, you know, so that was really the thing. And it was always a joy because, you know, I never said no to anything. I never said no. No one was asking me to sing Karloff. Nobody's asking me to sing Rodolfo. So whatever part was being offered to me was in my wheelhouse. So I got to do so many different roles.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just incredible. And as you know, singers probably get, you learn it once and it sticks with you if you learn it right. So, you know, Bardolph and Falstaff or whatever, all those ensembles, I could sing every line today. I mean, they're just, boop, they're in there.
I hear you. I hear you.
And some people aren't like that. Some people walk away for a week and they forget it.
Yeah,
and that's a left-right brain thing that some people have and some people don't. So, yeah, it was a ride, man, because I was really lucky. I worked a lot, and it was the kind of thing that, you know, I would average 12 shows a year.
Oh, wow.
Now, it wasn't great for my certain aspects of my life, but, you know, the big joke for me was that my truck was going to be idling in the loading dock so that I could jump in it after a matinee and drive across country for a Monday rehearsal for something else.
Wow.
And that's just what it was.
So in this idea of seeing how things have changed since you started, now as an educator and a producer, what do you notice differently about the singers that you're working with, the young singers of today, based on when you first started and you were an apprentice yourself? What specifically, maybe even at Brevard?
You know, I think the powerful thing is that, you know, this generation really does like to ask questions more. And you know, I mean, granted, you know my story, and I'm really transparent about it, but in my generation, we often didn't ask questions.
Right, sure.
We didn't ask it. You know what I mean? Just
do what you're told.
What's that?
I said, do what you're told, right?
Yeah, and you know, and we just didn't know any better. I mean, that's what, you know, I walk into a rehearsal as a 21-year-old and I see XYZ person who's older. I'm watching everything they do.
Right.
And what happens is that I tell my singers all the time, 90% of what you learn is what not to do by watching other people do what you probably shouldn't do.
Right.
So that education was huge for me. And
yeah.
Because I was so young and I was watching all these people, you know, I would just sit there in my own head and go, you know what? I'm not going to make that choice, or I'm not going to make that choice. So, I mean, that was really, really valuable. And singers like to ask questions now, and there's a bit more trepidation with young singers. You know, I mean, I think that's one thing I always struggle with, and when the singers come to me at Brevard, I want them to trust me faster than I can allow. I have to give them the grace to find the place to trust me. And I can tell them to, all night long. I said, look, you can trust me. I know that I am a little intense and I have a little interesting look and I've been around, but I allow for that now. And early on, I was more demanding of that.
Uh-huh.
And I, honestly, the pandemic and sobriety and opening my eyes to the changes that we're seeing, all of those are such a gift to me as a 60-year-old,
Yeah.
Good God. I mean, if I can't learn at 60, I might as well just pack it in.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll be 50 this year,
Right.
and I feel the exact same way. You learn a lot the longer you stay in anything, right? And things change around you, you change within it, and I think as long as we're doing our best to continue to learn from all aspects of the world that we put ourselves in, like you said, might as well pack it up and head out if you're refusing to be a part of it,
Well, I mean, so much of it I think is, this business is hard because, when you're really out there on your own doing it, there's nobody holding your hand.
Right.
Your teacher's not there, or your mentors aren't there. And so you're thrown to this, and somebody can try to teach you what it's going to be like, but it's never going to be the same as I experienced. And
Right.
I have to understand that more now than I used to. So, and that's the other gift for me, is because all these years at Brevard now, I've been with a bunch of generations. I mean, this is my 17th summer here. It's crazy.
Wow.
Gately was so kind to bring me here, and 17 years ago, and then it just morphed into me being here, and 17 years of a bunch of incredible numbnuts that I love going through there. And now, but the thing is my phrase there is, you may leave Brevard, but Brevard never leaves you. And when it comes to how many recommendation letters I've had to write over the years, we don't have to talk about that. Or, at that certain time of year when I have to get 2,500 phone calls of saying, hey, I got this offer, but then I auditioned for somebody and they're not deciding for 3 weeks. What do I, all those things, that's responsibility.
Yeah.
And it is. Yeah. It is service. It's service. That's all.
100%.
That's all I believe this is for me now.
100%.
Just service.
Well, to that point, I think one of the biggest things that has changed from the singer's aspect over the last, let's say, 20 years or 15 years is the invention of Yap Tracker, right? Like the simplicity of being able to go online and audition for, or just being aware that these auditions are happening. I mean, I know that a lot of different companies have talked about, the percentage of increase in audition requests, since the invention of that. Did you guys see, are you part of that at Brevard? Do you
Actually, we don't, because, Brevard is it's a music festival. So there's a whole institution. The opera program's under an umbrella of this place.
Okay.
So we actually have our own, own way of doing everything. So it's separated. But I do talk to them. I do keep in touch with them.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I am one of those that watches everything, reads everything, sits back. I just don't have many comments anymore.
And why is that?
No, I mean, I'm learning from this generation that it's important for me to sit back and, I'll speak when I'm spoken to.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's not a criticism. It's, I think I have something to offer still. I do. And I'm going to strive to do that. But I need to let this generation take the steps that they need to do and not interfere unless somebody wants to talk to me. And that's the beauty of where I'm at now with this, producing director position that I call myself now pretty much. And, I'm at Knoxville and I'm at Roanoke with Stephen now. And that's a big part of me, just my ambition is to make sure that companies don't close.
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah. So talk a little bit about those roles. You mentioned Knoxville and Roanoke. What is your position there in Knoxville?
Well, we call it the producing director. Obviously, I direct shows as a stage director, but the producing director side is it's not the production, the production director or coordinator. I mean, we have a great. What I get to do is I get to cultivate the productions that we do and get the right people in. And it's pretty much what I do at Brevard nonstop. And designing some sets and getting the right people together and taking my team and making that happen so that we're able to create different productions and new productions. And that's my big thing now is that, all I want to do is leave, productions that people can do. And I don't charge very much anymore, for those that I'm looking at the whole element of production. Because production is basically I spend all the money. You know what I mean? Somebody else raises the money and I spend it.
Yeah.
And that's hard these days. The industries are struggling, but and the income isn't coming in from costs. They're all getting higher. So that delicate balance is what we're fighting for now.
I see. And what
But I don't know
about
if I answered. I don't know if I answered your question. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Directing, production,
Yeah,
producer.
But what I wanted to go back to something you said before about, Yap Tracker and technology and all these things.
Sure.
I vividly remember being incredibly excited when a fax machine came out. And I vividly remember when I got a bank card for the first time and remember vividly that you know what I mean? It's shocking. So that personal one-on-one thing that I got to be a part of in those early days, where Jim Wright was working at Charlotte and through the grapevine, however we got that, probably talking to somebody else, I heard he's doing a false. Jim, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And for them, that's big. That is huge. And they're not used to it. And they're not doing it as much. So
Right.
there comes the grace. And there comes the responsibility to walk them through it as best you can. And so I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'll shut up.
No. This is great. I mean, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So what is the other role that you have with Opera Roanoke?
Oh, I'm actually the producer.
Yeah. We did a Benjamin Britten. It was, I think it was last year. It was Benjamin Britten War Requiem. Yeah.
I watched the video. It was cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. It was me and Barry Banks and Danielle Telemontes.
Love me some Barry Banks.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a great time. It was a great time.
Yeah.
What I remember the most about that particular performance was there near the end when the tenor has his most like unbelievably beautiful recitative. About 16 measures in, you hear from the audience, you hear the cell phone go, and I'm like, it's hard enough to just keep the tonality in your head, in that Britten stuff. And I looked at Barry and I was like, is he going to say like, hey, let's take this back. Please silence your phones. I mean, speaking of technology and the negative impact it's had, how many times have you been in a show where somebody's phone from the audience goes off? It's amazing. So when did you make the transition? When did you make the transition from singer performer to director producer? And how did that happen?
And I knew the company was small.
Yeah, Augusta.
And then that was that. And he said, I want you to direct it. And I went, what? Just out of the blue. And he goes, who knows this show better than you? I went, that's a good point. I know pretty well. And then, and he said, I also want you to do Sancho. I'm like, oh my God. So I just said, why not? So I went and I did this production down there of Man La Mancha with an incredible cast. And, I was out in the parking lot building props because I knew how to build stuff. So I'm building props in the parking lot, and I'm creating the show. And my dad was sick during that production. And, sorry, that's the monster.
Okay.
That's the monster. And so, and so it turned out that we had this incredible group of people. We worked, we did it, and I loved it. And I don't mean to be somber, but it's Father's Day, ironically.
Yeah.
But my dad passed away in the first act of the closing performance
Of that first opera that you directed?
Yeah, and I got the call at intermission, and I was going to go home the next day, and I didn't make it. It's one of those stories that we all know some of you have. And I got intermission, but then I had to go back and finish the second act as a performer. And of course, it's Man La Mancha, and my dear friend Mark Embry was doing the Quixote, and Quixote dies at the end. Yeah, and he falls in Sancho's arms, and I lay there with him there on my lap. 20 minutes ago, my dad died. So it was pretty amazing experience, heady wise, and so as we leave the show and we go off to the unknown, I looked in the eyes of all the people on stage, and I looked at them, and the empathy and the gratitude that came flowing for me, for my dad, but also they appreciated me for what I busted my butt to make a show. And I walked off stage and went, "This is it." Yeah. And so from that, I kind of sat back and said, I think this directing thing could be interesting. And honestly, a million people, friends of mine in the business who knew me as a performer, really weren't surprised because I was a character guy. And I had that physical sense And it started to snowball. It just snowballed. Steve Aiken brought me down to Shreveport, and I started doing producing stuff and directing for him, and like David Gately brought me to Brevard, and it just started to, and I just started going with it. And I didn't go to school for it and stuff. I was a theater major, a double major in college, and so I had some knowledge, but it was a big learning curve. But I just started doing it, and I did. I worked at a lot of really small places, but I also was the guy who had a truck and was building his own props, and I was a carny, and I'd drive anything to anywhere. And here I sit almost 20 years later doing the same thing, and so I really love what I get to do. I'm a famous, I don't get to go direct at the big opera houses, and the acceptance of that is fine. A lot of places call me when something's difficult. You know what I mean? They say, "Hey, bro, we need sets and props and costumes, and can you help me out?" And I go, "Sure." And then I start doing my checklist, start throwing stuff in my van and carny across the country, and that's fine with me. It's like God bless him more than life. I think you were talking about Bob Orth with Liz last week or 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I mean, it is like my life is like Bob's dark bio. When he says, "I work my way to the middle of the road," you know what I mean?
But his bio,
The
that
dark
was written
bio.
where
That's where it's from. I worked my way to the middle of the road, and I kind of feel like that. And but what I believe in myself is that my responsibility is that if I'm in the room with you, I give everything I have, and if I can make it better, I hope it's better. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
again, I was a little bit of a chaotic in those early years. Even when I met you, I was pretty chaotic. Well, no, because when anytime you make a big switch like that, you feel like you have something to prove, and you have something to, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? When you're young singing, you're trying to prove, and emotionally it can get the best of you, and sometimes you drive a little too hard.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
so, and when I started directing, I had already done a ton of performing,
Right.
and now I'm trying to start over that whole thing. So I felt like I had a lot to prove. But honestly, bro, it was really mostly based on fear. It was just mostly, I just did not want to look like I didn't know what I was doing. So gratefully now, it may sound trite when I say this to you, but all I want to do is stay in my own lane, drive the speed limit, and use my blinker. Because if I do that, if I put my blinker on, somebody's going to let me in or race ahead of me. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But if they let me in, I'm going to go like this in the rearview mirror, and they're going to go right back.
Right.
So I've just bypassed any kind of conflict, and I've bypassed, you know what I mean? Because when you're driving down the highway and people are racing through, everybody's emotions that are driving around that get affected.
Yeah, totally.
And I didn't take that into consideration when I was young.
I think an entire generation and a half, maybe 2 generations, did the exact same thing. I think we, like I said, I'm only 10 years behind you, but I mean, like, I think we were in the same, cult. It's like where every man for themselves, and see if you, just, it's like you hear about one thing and your top priorities to get the thing that you just found out about at no cost, and it's like when I started getting into that competition realm of where you're doing all these vocal competitions,
right?
And you start, I realized, I was like, I mean, even though I did kind of well in it,
Yeah.
I hated the feeling, because you're sitting in the room with these people who are your peers, who you're going to work with for the rest of your life, and you're like, I'm going to beat the crap out of you. It's like, I'm going to win, and it was which is so different than what the whole purpose of this art form is.
Right. I mean, in the old days, what we used to do is somebody say, I got an opera news, and you just go to the back page and look at the list and be pissed off at who's doing this show, who's doing that show. It made you, and that was so, who cares? Whatever.
I know.
Do your job, stay in your own lane. And, so that's my new philosophy, bro. And I'm not that smart.
I think it comes with the gray and the beard, I mean, I gotta say, over the almost 30 years I've been in the industry, you learn a lot, and you start to learn what works and what no longer works and what is much better for you. And so that being said, looking ahead, what do you see are the most important things that singers need to focus on, that you want to be focusing on, so that we can help to make sure that not only companies like Opera Roanoke and whoever, stay afloat and keep producing amazing art, but so that there's still that inspiration, that kind of excitement about the next thing,
No, I get it. And I think about that all the time, because I watch and I see what's changing, what's not changing, how it's changing. And of course, I have feelings about it. We, in our own ways.
Yeah.
And I'm just very careful about putting it out there. I think the most important thing for young singers today to know is that we, as administrators, I'm going into the administrator boat for a second, or producer, or whatever I do, is that we care immensely. I often would like to say, sometimes I want to say, hey, why don't you come sit with us for a couple weeks and take a view of what we have to deal with.
That right there could be one of the most incredible experiences for any young singer, is to sit on that other side of the table and to realize, oh my God, I really don't think that young singers understand. I remember the first time I ever got to sit on the other side of a table in just an audition room, and hearing singer after singer after singer kill it, just incredible. And then you're sitting there like, you guys have to pick one person. It's unbelievable.
Well, right, yeah. I mean, and that's hard. But not only that, but then the things such as, we need more money to do these productions. We can't go under budget, blah blah blah. You can't spend this much on this many singers, and then I can't rent that set, blah blah. Well, I can't do a 2-truck set because it's going to cost me too much money, because the set, 2-truck tech's going to be $25,000 for me to ship. $25,000. Okay, so we're talking money and all those elements, and so we have to do all this grid work to get down to what we can and can't do, and that's hard for people to manage. All they can see is that, they're taking this. A company did 10 shows or whatever, 10 performances, and all those things from the old days. I heard you and Liz talking about that. The decrease of productions, the decrease of yearly thing, and I see it. I see my boss. My boss is. I see the stress that they go, and I'm talking with them, and I feel the pain of it, and I think that we all have to just try to be patient. I mean, I'm impressed with all these they're pocketing new programs, and singers are really being adventurous out to sing and sing and sing, and I get it, and I'm grateful for that. I'd love to hire everybody. And I always can't. And it's difficult too, because there's still a lot of singers in the university system wanting to get in. I don't sit down with my singers here and do those old school days, but one of you will. So 2 of you will be successful in this career, and the rest of you.
Right.
I would never ever do that, But we're now able to talk about being a part of this industry in different formats. If it's going into administration or teaching, but just being a part of it. That's hard. That's hard to talk about. And what does a singer know when they go to university? If you walk in, you're pretty open. You don't really know.
Right.
And depending on where you go and you walk in the door, I assume your impression is that you're going to get what you need in that university system. And then you go out and then you find out, well, I didn't get that or this. And all right, so how do
this.
I mean, it's difficult. I mean, I've done five interim positions at universities, knowing full well that I am not really wired or right for a university system because I'm too opinionated. But I love the kids. The kids.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to it's all about the kids to me, in Brevard. And so I strive to just keep my pocket where it is. And be open-minded, just be open-minded when you get into this. Read, listen, discuss, ask questions. I don't know what kind of advice unless it's a specific situation.
Right.
If you look, the thing is that, to me, if you love singing, I mean, the love of singing is in itself just an innate gift. So no matter where you're doing it, no matter how you're doing it, whatever. I mean, if you end up deciding that the path, and we know lots of people who started a path and they were on a great trajectory and they went, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And that happened over the pandemic, this, that. And then you have a life that you're comfortable with. And then you walk over to your community theater and do a GNS production. I'm like, kick ass. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
Kick ass, good for you. And you're bringing that, and your work there is going to inspire somebody else and in a different way, or that company is going to grow because there's so many different levels of it.
Well, speaking of, did you ever work with Richard Paul Fink?
Get out of my head. I was just thinking about Richard Fink doing that GNS thing.
Yeah.
Houston. I was like, I was so jacked at that.
I looked at that and I was like, God, these people that are doing this show with him, it's unbelievable.
Actually, a couple of my little Brevardians were in it with him, and I'm like, great.
Wow.
Yeah. But that gets me excited. That gets me excited. I want people to take everything about this industry and put all the emphasis where it needs to be. So great singing. I struggle with some of the production value in certain places, but I keep my mouth shut.
You mean like the amount of money that's being spent on the production value, or
not? You know what I mean? And that's for me just because that's where my brain works.
Sure.
The fact is we here at Brevard, we design 3 sets a year and build them on site. In my entire production department here, there's interns in it. So there's teaching in every element of this whole thing. And, we're about to do Flight. In a week, we go into the theater in Flight. And I just posted a picture on my Facebook yesterday of this mural that we're using because I came up with this idea of a deco airport. You know what I mean? Because I wanted it to look like the old Delta terminal back in in LaGuardia. So that's where it came to me. And Grace, this painter.
Are you talking about the TWA terminal?
It used to be in Delta. It had a terminal that was an homage to the old-fashioned airport. Back in LaGuardia in the day.
Okay.
And that's where this whole thing. And I'm like, okay, if I have to look at a flight set for 2.5 hours, I want to look at something really intriguing. And then it morphed into some ideas for the show for me as a director. But I get to put that in my head. I get to create that with a designer and do all those things. And then I see this young little painter, Grace, painting this mural yesterday on the floor in the paint room, and my heart just melted. It's gorgeous. But I'm looking at this artisan who started a couple years ago here as an apprentice, and now she's the head painter.
Wow.
And Merry Christmas. That is my goal. That is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what it is. And that's the joy of Brevard. But I'm trying to do things at Brevard in Knoxville as well when it comes to productions. I just did this crazy production of Cendrillon by Vieux d'Ardot, which a lot of small places do, and it's good for young singers. I went crazy with it and did this. It's got 200 video cues in it, and it's done on a chalkboard, and the fairy godmother narrates it, and she's drawing in a book, and it looks like she's drawing on this mammoth, but it fits in a box truck. It fits in
Oh, wow.
a box truck. We designed it that way so that I can then rent it to you for the bro rate, as we call it.
The bro rate.
And it's not about us making money or me making money off this, or it's about helping somebody out.
Yeah.
It's about the hand offer. And of course, I'd like to see more of that in the industry. So as these young singers go through this, really try to maintain your humility.
Yeah.
And ego's hard. And you're fighting for what you believe in yourself can create more tension and more ego or envy, as we're looking in the back of that book. And all those things will, can catch up with you. And they did with me, but I'm trying not to live that way, in the last 4+ years,
Well,
being sober has been a really good thing for me,
That's incredible. That's incredible. And the old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, sounds like the exact opposite.
Yeah, I don't believe that anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. That's amazing. I think that's incredibly inspirational.
And I'll tell you this from me and me only. It's just about my own thing, is that, now I'm able to make sober decisions 24 hours a day. That is a gift, because other times you have to make, snap decisions no matter what you're doing.
Right.
And, try to make the amends on the past. I can't, forget the past, as my program says, but I can't shut the door on it either. Yeah.
Right.
I've been open about this, and I have no qualms. I am certainly don't, ride in some I got this all figured out either.
Right. But it
Yeah.
certainly sounds like you are at peace with where you are, and are definitely an inspiration to, whether you realize it or not, certainly to your dog, but also to
yeah. But I don't want to keep you. Tell me to get off or zip it.
No.
But that's an important part of this, because I have come to this place at 60 years old on Father's Day, when I don't have any kids and I've never gotten married. And trust me, I made some choices in the past. Let's just leave it at that. But so, just for my own heart, I've had to find a way to find my acceptance with my role in this industry. And look, I don't live in a kite, I don't fly way up here. I know that there's people in this industry who may not be fans. I also sometimes believe that, somebody of my age, some might just say, it's time for you to just step away from the car and let others get in. I struggle with that a little bit, just because I believe I still have something to offer.
Sure.
And I've got to make that decision when I feel like I don't, and that's my decision, but gosh, we just have to live, we want to live, and I don't have kids, and I don't have a wife, and I have a dog. And so I made peace with that.
Yeah.
And really, strangely enough, the pandemic taught me so many things. So taught us a lot of people things, and it was tremendously difficult for so many people, and horrible stuff going on. But we had to learn how to live with ourselves and figure ourselves out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was doing it. I was getting sober, so it was like double, and then I'm on all of the forums, and I'm all the things, and listening to what we need to change and how we need to grow. And I'm like, and I just shut up, bro. I just zipped it. I didn't say anything. I listen.
That's amazing.
And we could all do a little bit more listening these days.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Well, you mentioned that you're not a biological father to children of your own, but I guarantee you that those Brevardians, as you call them, you never know where they're coming from. And I think that you over the years have probably been more of a father figure to many of those students and singers than you realize.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Yeah.
out of the sheer people who I know who attended Brevard, the way that they've spoken of you is just beautiful. So,
It is, and some of them are, all of them are doing their thing. And I see some have lots of children now, and some are doing this, and some have gone into administration. Some are singing at the freaking Met every other
yeah.
week. I mean, and it's like, and so, Sidney Moncasola and Will Liverman and Michael Adams just made his debut this year.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah.
all these people, and there's some on Broadway. There's one on the Tonys tonight. One of my kids, one
Wow.
of my kids. But again, so making that commitment in my heart to do the best I can, to be there for them in any way I can, has brought the gifts back of that. So, yeah, they are really, a lot of them are my kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what I'm going to get to go. As I always used to say, it's a joke, but I always used to say this, my tombstone's used to read, never did Parpignol. Okay. I used to joke about that all the time, but now I don't feel that. Now I, honestly, they'll probably just say you may leave Brevard, but Brevard never leaves you. I mean, I may say that.
Right.
But,
right.
I'm trying, doing the best I can. I'm honestly just doing the best I can. And I hope we get to work together.
Likewise.
So that, because honestly, that Fledermaus that we did was at the peak end of my my downfall.
Well, I want you to know I didn't take anything away from that experience in any negative way at all.
No.
I really enjoyed getting an opportunity to work with you and to meet you.
Enjoyed it too.
Yeah, and
Hard.
some of the people, Adelmo and I have become like, best friends. I talk to that guy all the time.
Yeah, and that's too the great thing too is that Adelmo and I catch up all the time. He's always hit me up for work, but I love you, Adelmo.
Great.
But I mean, and he had a hiatus in his life of singing for a while and busted his leg really badly, and then he decided to come back. And his first coming back was doing a Figaro with me. And,
oh wow!
And he was just like dying. I mean, he was like, "Bro, you're killing me." And but we've done tons of shows since then, and I'm always thinking about when I get to if he's available. And and I'm dying to do a Pagliacci with you now after hearing. I made you send me that clip, and I'm like, "Oh, that sounds kick-ass."
Well, yeah, let's hope that comes to fruition.
But that's the thing is that if we can sit back now and just be in the room with the people that we want to be with, I mean, that's it. That's it. I mean, I guess who wants to be in a crappy room? You know what I mean?
Totally.
So young singers, know about walking into a room, and everybody's in a different space. Everybody's in one place. So assessing, that's the other thing, Weston, is my attempt now to assess everything, not judge. If I assess it, I'll take a pause and I'll sit back and I'll go, then my brain will click in, my sobriety will click in and everything. And then I'm not going to just blurt out this or that. I'm going to be able to make a rational decision. So we judge. The industry judges all the time.
Of course.
Mental thing. It's also a very vulnerable business.
Well, it's such a subjective industry, right? Where on a panel of 3 people, one of them could have hated it and the other one was her favorite person. And so, there's such a dichotomy of like, oh, well, okay, what are we going to do?
I think I stole this from Aiken years ago, and he's, talking to his young artist or something. And I used it all the time. I said, you're walking in the room and just selling some fruit, and just selling some fruit. I'm going to sell you some oranges today. You don't want them? I'm going to go next door and sell my oranges. Zip it up and go. Easier said than done.
Totally.
Easier said than done.
Well, I love, recently I found a video on I can't remember, it's some meme or something, probably on TikTok or YouTube or something, where Michael Keaton was talking about his experience with auditioning. And once he sort of shifted the mindset to seeing an audition as an opportunity, that's the gig. Like, that's it. I'm going to show up to the audition. I'm going to perform. and I'm not going to care about what the results are at all. And I'm just like, that's the gig. It doesn't pay very much or anything at all, but I'm going to go and do the gig, and that's it. And I think if young singers are able to, or hell, anybody, you know, going into an audition is able to view it as like, okay, I'm just going to perform to the best of my ability, you know, and then not worry so much about what the results are that come from that. But again, it's hard to do.
You know, I have to say, may I say something about this?
Please.
I mean, the thing about it is we all get that. It's hard for young singers to retain that from someone who's older and been around and done it. So their vulnerability and it's so much more difficult for them just to let that go, or to just say, okay, I'm 20 years old and I'm going to sing this business, and I'm going to sing it with my 20-year-old voice. And if you expect it to be perfect and you have a problem. Not me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if you're hearing a 20-year-old that is just starting and your expectations is way beyond what that is, then you're in the wrong place.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right.
So take that person for where they're at.
Sure.
I mean, Brevard, I got an 18-year-old kid here.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
And he walked in the door, and I met him. I was directing a Sweeney last year, and he was in the chorus. And I just thought this kid was great. You know what I mean? And then applied. I'm like, he's got to be here, you know? And he's I think he just might have turned 19. But he's just hungry. It's a hungry 19-year-old kid, and he has an instrument. You know, it's an instrument. I have no huge expectations for him, but I want him to sing. I want him to grow. I want him to just accept where he's at in his baby 19-year-old self singing Zarastro. And when he gets in those low notes, he's a happy guy, and they sound great. You know what I mean? And he's just relishing it.
I hear you.
Top's not there yet, but he's 19.
Exactly.
No big deal. You know, and that's what I love about the cultivation of what I get to do. Because I'll bring him back, and then, you know, or he might go away for a couple of years and come back, and he'll be singing Zarastro, and you know what I mean, and give him his first opportunity to do flute. That's what I love too. Man, I love getting these young singers and putting them through their first Figaro, their first Bohème. Bro, we started Bohème the other day. Yeah.
Oh,
I got
y'all are doing. What's your season there?
Yeah,
this
we're
year?
doing Flight by Jonathan Dove. Intense piece, by the way. Yeah. And I direct everything now too, so it kind of kicks my butt.
Oh, wow.
But we're doing Flight, Bohème, and Three Penny Opera. So it's cool.
Okay.
But we just started Bohème the other day, and I'm in as you well know, Marcello, we're in that first scene. And I got a bunch of guys who've never done it before. You know what I mean? So
that's incredible, though. Like if you've never done Bohème, that's amazing.
Yeah, because if you do it in a room with a bunch of guys, if you're a director and you have four guys who've done it before, you can pretty much just throw the dice out and say, "I'll meet you at the Fermata."
Yeah.
I'm kidding, but when you start, and then they're just going, yeah. So I get to take them through every musical interlude that leads to that next moment, to that and it's hysterical. I mean, we were doing Lenya, Sigari, Bordeaux.
Yeah.
The guy grabs the cheese and they go, Lenya. And, bro, let's go. And I love that.
Yeah.
It takes so much time. But the joy is that they're going to, no matter what, after 2 rehearsals, they're going to be able to pocket that information the next time they do it.
Of course.
And it's going to be so much easier for them. So they'll be able to find new colors and new different things. And cultivate young singers. And I know, look, opera world, whoever listens to this, I know it's difficult. It is a tuition-based industry. Brevard's tuition-based, and that's brutal, and I know the fees can be tricky, and we have scholarships, but I know that everybody wants money, and I only do my part here. I'm a Brevard. I just have an opera company. There's an institute. I wish everybody could come for free. I wish we didn't have to do all that.
Sure.
But if a young singer's not getting what they need in school, if they can learn that, there are places that you can still learn.
Absolutely.
You know.
Well, we certainly appreciate you. I appreciate you, and like I said, I know that everyone that I know that has worked with you at Brevard or anywhere else has always spoken so much about all the things that you just encapsulated. So
Yeah.
I really do appreciate you coming
Here's
on.
my last thing I'll say, what I think is funny, is that you always know you've done something. I'm not saying something good or bad.
Right.
When you toss a name out and there's usually a laugh. Yeah. Yep, there it is. They say, hey, I worked with Dean Anthony. Oh my God. The head goes
Right.
back. Yeah.
Right. Sure.
That's when you know you left your mark.
Yeah. Yeah. Good or bad. Right. But I think I just absolutely love what you said. We listen more, we stay in our own lane, you drive the speed limit, and you use your blinker if you want to switch over. That's
Use the
important.
blinker.
That's important.
Yeah, don't take anybody out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the best for your summer at Brevard
brother.
and for next season. And
I'm a big
hope
fan. I'm a big fan, Big
thanks,
fan.
man. Likewise.
So
Likewise.
we'll talk soon, all right?
Okay. Thanks so much
Thanks,
for doing
brother.
this. I appreciate it. All right. Take care. Bye.